Hello everyone, my name is Braden, this is Airless Quill 9, and in today's video we are going to talk about the Genie, or rather the Djinni, which is the Genie of the Air. So these are genies of wind and skies. They personify freedom and might. They can take control of the wind and travel as swiftly as a breeze. They might be as serene as drifting clouds or as tempestuous as storms, but most Djinn relish their freedom and desire to discover the wonders of the multiverse. Djinn often know many stories, and they might share such lore with those who offer their own exciting stories in trade. While many Djinn create airy palaces on stormy coasts or high in the clouds, untold numbers dwell on the elemental plane of air. In floating cities, Djinn collect tales and experience from across the planes of existence, sharing them in fabulous forums, libraries, and theaters. The greatest of these cities is the Citadel of Ice and Steel, in which wind-sculpted towers contain a city-sized trove of incredible knowledge and treasures that defy belief. So yeah, some pretty interesting stuff about the Genie. These are some of my favorite Genie options available in the monster manual, and the stat block has seen so many changes, so let's go ahead and just get straight to it because there's a lot to talk about. We will of course look at the 2024 stat block and then discuss what changes have been made since 2014. So let's get to it. So the Genie is a large elemental genie of neutral alignment. They have an armor class of 17, a initiative of +2, 218 hit points, a speed of 30 feet, and a fly speed of 90 feet with hover. For their ability scores, they have a strength of 21, a dexterity of 15, a constitution of 22, an intelligence of 15, a wisdom of 16, and a charisma of 20. They're proficient in dexterity and wisdom saving throws. They are immune to lightning and thunder damage. For their senses, they have dark vision of 120 feet and a passive perception of 13. Languages, they know Primordial Orin, and they are challenge rating 11, giving them 7,200 experience points and a proficiency bonus of +4. The Genie has 3 traits, the first of which is Elemental Restoration. This states that the Genie dies outside the elemental plane of air, its body dissolves into mist, and it gains a new body in 1d4 days, reviving with all of its hit points somewhere on the plane of air. Magic Resistance, of course, grants advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. And then Wishes states that the Genie has a 30% chance of knowing the Wish spell. If the Genie knows it, the Genie can cast it only on behalf of a non-Genie creature who communicates a wish in a way the Genie can understand. If the Genie casts the spell for the creature, the Genie suffers none of the spell's stress. Once the Genie has cast it 3 times, the Genie can't do so again for 365 days. In the action section, the Genie has a multi-attack, allowing it to make 3 attacks using Stormblade or Stormbolt in any combination. Stormblade is going to be a melee attack roll with a +9 to hit and a reach of 5 feet. On a hit, it deals 2d6 plus 5 slashing damage plus 2d6 lightning damage. Stormbolt is a ranged attack roll with a +9 to hit and a range of 120 feet. And on a hit, it deals 3d8 thunder damage. If the target, however, is a large or smaller creature, it also has the prone condition, which is nice. Below that, we have Create Whirlwind. It says if the Genie conjures a whirlwind at a point it can see within 120 feet, the whirlwind fills a 20-foot radius, 60-foot high cylinder centered on that point. The whirlwind lasts until the Genie's concentration on it ends. The Genie can move the whirlwind up to 20 feet at the start of each of its turns. When the whirlwind enters a creature's space, or a creature enters the whirlwind, that creature is subjected to the following effect. Strength saving throw, DC 17. A creature makes the save only once per turn, and the Genie is unaffected. On a failure, while in the whirlwind, the target has the restrained condition and moves with the whirlwind. At the start of each of its turns, the restrained target takes 66 thunder damage. At the end of each of its turns, the target repeats the save, ending the effect on itself on a success. Finally, we have spell casting. This allows the Genie to cast one of the following spells requiring no material components, and using Charisma as the spell casting ability. Spell save DC 17. At will, it can cast Detect Evil and Good and Detect Magic. Twice per day each, it can cast Create Food and Water, and it can create wine instead of water if it so wishes. It can also cast Tongues and Wind Walk, and then once per day each, it can cast Creation, Gaseous Form, Invisibility, Major Image, and Plane Shift. So there's a lot happening in the stat block, and as you can see here, a lot of interesting options. So let's talk about what changes have been made from 2014, because, oh boy, there's a lot to talk about. So, first off, in 2014, the Genie had 161 hit points. It now has 218 hit points. So beforehand, it used to have 14 hit dice, and it now has gained 5 additional hit dice as a change. So yeah, a lot more hit points than it previously used to have, so it should be able to last a little bit longer in combat, which is quite nice. They've also added in the hover tag to the fly speed of the Genie, which is quite nice. That does give some benefits there. In the languages section, they have specified that the Genie speaks Primordial with the Oran dialect attached as a subtag. So that is a small change there, but a welcome one, because it does specify that this is indeed the primordial language, so that people who speak primordial do understand that. Elemental Restoration, of course, is a new trait attached to the Genie. Magic Resistance and Wishes are also new traits. I should mention that beforehand, the Genie used to have a trait called Elemental Demise instead of Elemental Restoration. This just said that its body dissolved into a warm breeze when it died, leaving behind only the equipment it was wearing or carrying. So that has been removed and seemingly replaced with the Elemental Restoration trait instead, which is nice. Innate spellcasting used to be in the trait section. That has been moved into the action section and renamed to spellcasting. So we'll talk about those changes in just a sec. In the multi-attack section, the Genie still makes 3 attacks. However, it now uses Stormblade or Stormbolt in any combination. So both of those are new options. Stormblade is similar to the 2014 Scimitar attack. However, in 2014, the Genie dealt 2d6 plus 5 slashing plus 1d6 lightning or thunder damage, and I got to choose which of those 2 types to deal. The Stormblade has fixed values for the slashing and additional damage, and the elemental damage of this portion has been chosen to be lightning and does have an additional d6 attached to it. So honestly, kind of a buff there. And not too bad that it's lightning and not thunder, even though lightning is more resisted than thunder, but that's perfectly fine, because in relation to that, the Genie does have the Stormbolt option for an attack roll, and this deals slightly less damage than the Stormblade, 6 damage less rather, but it also prones the target if they're large or smaller, which is going to be pretty likely in all honesty. So yeah, pretty nice option there. Now, Create Whirlwind was present in 2014, but this has seen a number of changes, which I'm going to talk about. The first of these is the size of the whirlwind itself. Previously, this used to be a 5-foot radius, 30-foot tall cylinder. So it is now a 20-foot radius, 60-foot high cylinder. So covering a lot larger space than it previously did, which is pretty cool to see. Now, previously, the Genie could move the whirlwind as an action up to 60 feet. That has been changed to where now the Genie can move the whirlwind up to 20 feet at the start of each of its turns as a free action, which is quite nice there. Granted, the movement speed has been reduced from 60 feet to 20 feet, which is quite a large reduction. But doing it at the start of the Genie's turns rather than having them spend a full action to movement is a great benefit. Great change there. And honestly, 20 feet is not a crazy reduction considering the radius on this thing is 4 times larger than it previously was. So might not even be that much of a debuff. But in the second portion of Create Whirlwind, there are some changes here. First off, the DC used to be 18. It is now 17. And I think it may have been a mistake that it was 18 before because the math just didn't math. So I think the DC was changed to 17 because it's scaling off of charisma, and now that's just a lot more apparent because the bonuses do add up to that DC now. I did forget to mention that the Genie lost proficiency in charisma saving throws, so that might also function into why it has additional hit points now. But honestly, it got magic resistance and return, so I'm not going to be that upset about it. There is another huge change to Great Whirlwind, though, and that is that the restrained target in the Whirlwind takes thunder damage at the start of each of its turns while restrained in the Whirlwind. That was not present in the old version. There was no damage attached to Great Whirlwind beforehand. So, yeah, that's an amazing buff. And then it does state here that at the end of each of its turns, the target repeats the save to free itself from the Whirlwind. And beforehand, in 2014, the target used to have to spend its action to repeat the save. So this is just kind of cleaned up the action economy for how that functions. I don't mind that it now happens at the end of a creature's turn. That's perfectly fine to me because now the whirlwind is just dealing damage. So seems like a nice trade-off. I'm perfectly happy with that trade-off. The only other change to mention here is in the spellcasting section. The 2 per day each used to be 3 per day each for the spells listed in that section. Create Food and Water, Tongues, and Windwalk. I don't feel like that's a crazy change, but it is something that I need to mention because, I mean, it is a small change. And there are a couple spells missing from the 2014 spell list that are not present here in 2024. And those spells are Thunderwave and Conjure Elemental. Thunderwave, I think, is fine that it's missing because I'd much rather use the multi-deck option of the Genie. And then it's fine that Conjure Elemental is gone. I mean, it did have some additional functionality, and it has changed considerably in 2024. But Whirlwind is helping us deal additional damage, so there's no need to cast Conjure Elemental anymore. So, yeah, it makes sense why they removed it. Other than that, it still has all the other spells that it previously had. So, yeah, overall, quite a few changes to the Genie, and I feel like overall these are good changes, particularly in the multi-attack, and the whirlwind is a lot more useful here, and additional hit points and magic resistance. Just a lot more stuff happening in the stat block, and I feel like the Genie just benefits from these changes. So yeah, really enjoy what they've done here to the Genie. But that is going to be it for this particular video, so thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. We are going through every monster in the 2024 Monster Manual and talking about the changes made to them, so just keep an eye out for those videos every weekday until we're done with looking at all these monsters. But we're only in the Ds, so it may be a while. But until then, thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video. See you later.